Welcome back to Deep in State. I'm Nick Cox with Neel Somani from Eclipse today. Neel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah, super psyched to have you on. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. That helps us bring you great guests like Neel today. And I'm excited to dive into what you're doing, Neel. Let's start off with what is Eclipse?
So with Eclipse, we're letting people spin up their own app chains, but instead of a regular layer one blockchain, these are rollups. So what
Okay.
we've done is we've taken a bunch of projects. We started in gaming and we hammered out what's a really great template that applies to a lot of gaming projects. Now we're supporting a bunch of those. And more recently, we've gotten into DePIN projects supporting players like React, who's building a decentralized battery or power network where folks have power meters in their house and it tracks their generation and consumption, and they can use that data to better optimize their power bill. We're supporting Wind, who's doing decentralized proxy networks, where people don't know that VPNs are actually very centralized. These IP addresses are owned by a bunch of big entities, but we all have IP addresses on our computers. So Wind lets you lease out your IP address and participate in that proxy network. We have some bigger folks like IoTex, where the most simple integration with them is that they can view all of the DePIN projects building in our ecosystem. But more than that, they have this publisher subscriber in the middle where we can actually replace that with an Eclipse chain. And we have some projects that we're not privy to announce yet, but we're basically taking these Oracle networks, which are historically very centralized, producing millions of transactions. We're actually able to put those on chain in a decentralized way. So those are the high level kinds of projects that we've been working with within DePIN.
Got it. Okay, so walk me through this because a lot of folks who are coming into DePIN are coming in from the P side, the physical side, and they're not super familiar with the DE, the decentralized piece. Let's do some of the basic stuff. What is a rollup, and why would a project want to use a rollup?
Yeah, so maybe works to start with just what are the incumbent options, which are just traditional blockchains like Solana or Polygon, which are blockchains that a lot of the DePIN folks might be familiar with. And Solana's business model is basically that you post transactions to this blockchain and they charge you a little bit of money for it. And if you post a lot of transactions, you're going to be paying a lot of money. So this is why when Helium moved from having their own app chain, their own blockchain, over to Solana, they couldn't post as much data onto the Solana blockchain because it's just prohibitively expensive. They'd be paying millions of dollars a day. Whereas a rollup, or let's actually take one step away from that, is an app chain lets you have your own layer one blockchain. So that lets you run your own, you have to run all the components of this blockchain. You have to get your own validators. You have to make sure it's reliable. If it goes down, you have to figure that out. But the advantage is now, if you run a ton of transactions on this, you're not paying some other person rent. Instead, you can actually receive that rent and it becomes a source of revenue for your DePIN project. So a roll-up is a way of kind of getting the best of both worlds where you don't want to be running all this blockchain infrastructure on your own. That's very difficult. But at the same time, you don't want to be paying rent to some other blockchain such as Solana or Polygon. So this allows you to define the economics so that the more transactions you run, the more economical it becomes for your application, rather than the reverse dynamic where the more transactions you post, the more expensive it gets. So a roll-up is basically like a blockchain. It's a mini blockchain that borrows security from some other blockchain. It could be Ethereum, could be some other blockchain like Celestia, which is in Cosmos, could be even Solana. You could build a roll up on top of Solana. In general, we probably wouldn't advise to do that, but we can explain why if maybe in a later episode. But
Yeah,
um, but
yeah,
yeah,
we can
that's
dive in.
kind of what a roll up is doing.
Okay, cool. And then on these shows, we have the Geonet question. Geonet is a sponsor of this show. You can cruise down to the description and use code DEPIN for $20 off your next Geonet miner. Question today is one of the big questions with all these projects is how do you guys make money? If you guys are saving so much with doing this roll up thing, like where do you guys come in and receive value on this chain?
Yeah, so I think that the first place to start there is what is the value chain, just to start with. And for a roll up, you have to execute transactions, so you have to run them. You have to post that result somewhere. That's posted to a layer one blockchain. That's a way that you can borrow security from it. And
Hmm.
then you have to have some process to determine what was the correct result and did that execution actually work correctly. And that's called the settlement process. So
Okay.
those are the three high level places where people can capture value. The layer one blockchain is actually an expense. So whatever you charge users for your rollup, you have to somehow justify the cost that you're paying to the layer one. But the more volume you produce, the more that there's a fixed cost attached to deploying a rollup to a layer one blockchain, and that'll get amortized. So it'll get cheaper for the more transactions you run. For us, we likely are going to play in execution and settlement. Settlement is the core piece of infrastructure that we're providing, which basically means that you can run your blockchain. You can even run the execution on your own. And we'll just make sure for some small price, we'll make sure that it's running correctly. But we're probably going to get into execution as well, which means that we can participate in actually running the execution infrastructure for you as well. And then we'd share the revenue that comes from the chain.
Okay. All right. Dig it. So for you guys, you're a little bit off the path of the normal deployer as far as, someone who's buying a Helium mining rig or a Geonet miner is probably not going to buy something from you. What do your perfect clients look like, or who are the folks that you're wanting to talk to and connect with?
The customer would be like Helium themselves, or it'd be the protocol that's building the DePIN network. It won't necessarily be the folks building the physical infrastructure. They probably barely need to even know that we exist. They'll be integrating in the same way that folks integrate with Solana. We'll give them very straightforward instructions. But the protocol that's building a DePIN network, such as the Reacts of the world, those guys could likely benefit from working with us.
Got it. Okay. So the folks that you guys are looking for are other projects, and basically you're making, if I'm understanding it right at the highest level I could put it, is that basically you're making it a lot easier for these projects to run on the blockchain.
Exactly. Yeah, these are a lot of times projects that want to post so many transactions or so much stuff on chain, such as React, who's literally posting gigabytes of data on chain, or Wave. These guys do like GDPR enforcement on chain. Every time someone submits a website form, it'll get posted onto a chain. So you can imagine this is just an enormous amount of data, and pretty much only Eclipse can make this possible. And then more than that, the economics of it are very favorable.
Okay. Dig it, dude. So for folks who are watching this, maybe they're a founder, they're running a project, where's the best place to find you?
Definitely Twitter, which is Eclipse FND. It's not Eclipse FDN. It's Eclipse FND on Twitter.
Okay.
And our website is eclipse.builders. And those are
Right
the two places where you can get the best resources on us. We have docs on our website if you want to dig into the technical details. But you can also DM me on Twitter as well. It's Neel Somani, NeelSalami.
Okay. Love it. Ripping, Neel. Thanks a ton for coming on. Really appreciate you making the time to go through this first one with us and just intro the idea of rollups. I'm excited to have you guys come back on when you sign your next big client or you're getting the next big project in. We can figure out what you've been doing for them. So
that sounds great.
Ripping. All right. For those of you watching, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Always good to help us bring more great guests to you so you learn about what's going on and keep up with the latest in the DePIN space. We're signing off. I'm out.